A huge thank you to Jeff Holmes for bringing you today's video via Patreon. Urza Lord Protector versus Ruric Thar. And we are on the play here with a bunch of mana, but not necessarily anything to do with it. Do we just try our luck? Especially with a mana drain, we could counter a quick Ruric Thar, hopefully, if we get into an island. And let's play out the island first so that we can hold up double blue just in case we draw into an island and want to hold up the mana drain. No turn 1 ramp from our opponent, thankfully. We can go for a turn 2 Urza here. And we do get into another blue source in Windswept Heath, so might as well play and crack that. And then it's into Urza Lord Protector, and we're just hoping for some decent draws here at this point. Buy ourselves a little bit of time with the mana drain. And there we see a Collector Oath, so that switches off our Mana Crypt straight away. I mean, we want to get down the Scalding Tarn, might as well be a tap land. We can get down the Weak and Might Stone anyway, and that can kill this thing and switch our artifacts back on. Yeah, well, we can offer up the trade, not that they're going to block here. Now seeing a Garruk's Uprising, one of the few non-creature spells in the deck, I dare say. And holding back, so maybe they do plan on blocking at some point. Might be worried about haste and stuff like that. Well, we're just getting mana screwed, unfortunately. We'll pull out another land out of the deck with the Marsh Flats. But yeah, we just continue to swing in and hold up the mana drain. A Lightning Greaves from our opponent now, which is a strange inclusion when they've got Collector Oath in the deck. Noteworthy that they played a Kessig Wolf Run as well. Alright, a Telling Time for us. Probably do that during my opponent's turn. Actually, we can still hold up the mana drain, can't we? So might as well go Telling Time here. So we choose card to put into hand. I think that will be the Opt, because we can play that during our opponent's turn. Then Urza's Command can go on top and probably play that next turn. The Mystic Gate obviously goes on the bottom. I actually overpaid for that. That was only a single blue mana, thanks to the Urza. Yeah, so just drop a Plains and pass. Our opponent just seems to be limping his way up to the Ruric Thar here. So at the end of the turn we can still hold up the Hindering Light. Let's play the Opt. We will scry the Urza's Command on top and draw. And that means we're obviously drawing a new card during this turn. And there we see a 1 mana Fateful Absence. So throw out the Plains. And we've got an answer for the Ruric Thar if needs be. Attacking in with Urza again. A pretty nondescript game so far. We didn't keep the best hand. Might start to get a bit more exciting here, especially if our opponent manages to land the Ruric Thar. Okay, there's a Silverback Elder, which can destroy artifacts and enchantments. I think that will eat a Fateful Absence. Draws a card with the Garruk's Uprising. Let's go Fateful Absence now onto that thing. They can't do anything with the Clue token while the Oath is in play, so we might encourage them to block with the Oath and switch our mana back on. Seeing as how we've made consistent land drops here, they'll get 2 artifacts out of that deal. Missed out on a lot of damage not swinging in with that thing. If they're never going to block with it, they might as well be hitting us. Anyway, we'll play out the Urza's Command here. I think it's scry 1 draw and make a construct. Amazingly, don't have all that many artifacts in play at the moment. And we see an island on top. We will scry that to the bottom and draw instead into a Fierce Guardianship. Obviously we have our commander in play, so that won't cost anything. Alright, and a Rhystic Study is excellent. Might as well throw out the Mishra's Workshop, even though we can't do anything with it yet. And then once again we're just holding up counter magic, so if our opponent goes for their commander next turn, they'll have to draw us a card with the Rhystic Study. Let's see if they want to trade us with the Oath. We could lose our construct here, which stands to get really big if we actually manage to draw into artifacts at some point this game. Deciding not to and just taking the damage. We've got them up to 10 commander damage, amazingly. They do manage to make a 6th land. And now going for Soul of the Harvest. We will see what we draw into. I'm not looking to counter the Soul of the Harvest. Getting to a Mana Vault, which will make this thing bigger. We're going to have to stop swinging in at our opponent, though. That will cantrip them with the Garruk's Uprising. All their big creatures will cantrip twice now. Alright, a Fact or Fiction is good. Might as well play Mishra's Workshop, Mana Vault now. Let's see. Yeah, we can go Fact or Fiction here, I think. And there we see a Sphinx's Rev. Our opponent obviously has to split this into piles. The Vanquish the Horde and Dovi's Veto are the most relevant things there, so could stand to have plenty of counter magic available to us here. Not sure how many opportunities we'll get to counter a non-creature spell though. Alright, well that's quite the pile, so Sphinx's Rev and Vanquish the Horde I will certainly take. Yeah, so it's either a couple of lands and Dovin's Veto or a Wrath and Sphinx's Rev. Definitely take that. These are the two cards I wouldn't have put together in that scenario. Oh, and of course this is free. Keep forgetting about the Urza and the fact that it nets us mana here. That is fine. Nothing else for us to do. The Sphinx's Rev isn't anywhere near as good, annoyingly. So, yep, just pass it like that. And, yeah, just playing more cantrip stuff into the Vanquish the Horde. They know we have that. See if they want to pay into the Rhystic Study. They do not, giving us a Buried Ruin. Drawing with the Soul of the Harvest there. Staying at 6 cards in hand. This is obviously a more control-y build, more than an artifacts build, so, I mean, the longer the game can go on, the better it is for us. And they obviously want to start swinging in with Soul of the Harvest. If we can get another artifact into play, we'll be able to block that quite nicely. Just have to take the 6 here, though. This is where the damage from the Oath could have been relevant. Alright, and drawing into a Snap, so this is on entry, I think. Whenever a non-token creature enters, and that is cast, so we'll probably get them to recast the Soul of the Harvest, I would imagine. Play out the Buried Ruin. And yeah, otherwise we're just continuing to hold up our counters and the Sphinx's Rev. We can put 4 mana into the Sphinx's Rev as it stands now, but we'll actually gain mana from the Snap because it costs us 1 but untaps 2 lands. Obviously being able to dump a bunch of free mana from the mana drain into the Sphinx's Rev would be ideal, but it all depends on our opponent. 5 cards in hand after the land drop. Alright, and there we finally see their attempt, the Ruric Thar. They will draw a card to the Beast Whisperer, see if they want to give us a Rhystic Study draw here. They do. That is a generous gift, so obviously the more answers we can get into, the better. Might go for... yeah, might hold on to the Snap actually, and we can blow up the Soul of the Harvest. I'll allow them to draw a card, and they might tap out this turn, maybe get into a 2 mana spell of some kind. Anyway, mana drain onto that thing for sure. So that is a free 6 mana next turn. And then deciding not to swing in with Soul of the Harvest, curiously. So do we just hold on to the Generous Gift? We could wrap this up in a board wipe, I suppose. Maybe Generous Gift onto the Lightning Greaves will be better once the Oath's gone down. Yeah, we'll hold it for now. Continue to grind this out in typical blue-white fashion. Managed to draw into a land for the turn, another island, I don't mind. Get the free 6 mana from the mana drain. So let's just put 6 mana into the Sphinx's Revelation here, I think. And it's actually 7 mana into X because it costs 1 less thanks to the Urza, Lord Protector. So played a land for the turn. We've got the Soul Ring, the Arcane Signet there. We've got a Transmute Artifact, so we can get the Planeswalker down if we want. Yeah, it's more difficult, obviously, when we've got to just dump a load of mana into it. It will be 5 mana for the Might Stone, Might and Weak Stone, which means that's obviously 7 in total. Could get down the Gilded Lotus first, I suppose, seeing as how we're not doing anything else with Mishra's Workshop. I think that will be a good idea. Sets us up for going Transmute Artifact, and that just straight up turns that into a Might and Weak Stone. So I think we'll do that. And then we're pretty much just holding up the Snap and our Counter Magic, the Generous Gift, so yeah, go through to the next step here. Discarded the Celestus, a Land or Steer Command, and the Arcane Signet there. Okay, going to try and whack us for 6 with Soul of the Harvest. That means we take 6 here and then 12. We could use Generous Gift to blow up one of our own permanents and then double block here. That's an option. I want them to have this in play really so that it gets wrapped up in the board wipe, otherwise I'd just snap. I'm thinking they'll tap out into the Ruric Thar at the end of this turn, but I'd rather not take 12 damage. Screw it, we'll just take the 12 damage assuming that they get out Ruric Thar. Alright, there is a Bane of Progress. Yeah, of all the spells, paying into the Rhystic Study as they should, so that really slows us down. I mean, our artifacts aren't being used anyway, but we're just continuing to really go slow here, I think. So Bane of Progress wiping out all of our artifacts, of course, and the Rhystic Study. So all of our stuff getting wiped out there pretty much, Luckily, we've been making consistent lands this game. And then the Great Henge, excellent. Got a decent number of non-creature spells in a Ruric Thar list. So we do have to concern ourselves with Trample. Obviously, the Great Henge can't be activated for its mana ability either, thanks to the Collector Oath. Just wondering if we go for Generous Gift here, could we play the Sol Ring, tap it for mana and transmute, and have enough mana left over for the Vanquish the Horde? Yeah, I think we could, but can we do anything is the question. Let's actually try and do something this game. So Generous Gift onto the Collector Oath. Now there is a Mystic Confluence that we could counter the Ruric Thar with. Go for the Sol Ring. And again, I've tapped that down for mana. So we'll go Transmute Artifact, going to sacrifice the Sol Ring, of course. Go after the Might Stone and Weak Stone. And then when the Might Stone and Weak Stone enters, we can just draw 2 cards. We're about to wipe the board anyway, I think. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think this is 7. Yeah, we've got to put 7 into it. So draw 2 cards. Gets us into Frantic Search, which untaps 3 lands. So that actually ramps us a little bit. So we'll cast the Frantic Search. That is 2 mana. We'll draw 2 cards and then discard 2 cards, untap up to 3 lands. Let's discard the Hindering Light, doesn't seem to be doing as much good. And I think we're fine to get rid of Lightning Greaves at this point as well. Untap our Jewels and a blue land. Play the Ancient Den. And now I think we're trying to buy ourselves another turn through the Ruric Thar. And because we really want to flip this around and then wipe the board. And we've got Counter Magic and Snap and things like that held up now, so yeah, I think we're passing through the turn again. Rather not Snap on the Bane of Progress. So do we just try and do it now? Snap will cost us 1, and then we'll untap 2 lands, so we effectively buy ourselves a mana there. Yeah, I'll just pass through the turn here, I think. Play it really conservatively. Now we see a Mana Crypt, which is now switched on, along with the Great Henge. They tap that down during the last turn to gain a couple of life. Now seeing a Galter, Primal Hunger. They blew up their own Lightning Greaves, so we're not particularly worried about that at the moment. Drawing from Great Henge, draw from Soul of the Harvest. Nylea, God of the Hunt, will be indestructible even if it is a creature. Once again comes in as a creature, so triggers the card draw. And they can afford their commander here. They seem very reluctant to try and get it down though. Attacking creatures you control have double strike. Let's go for the Fierce Guardianship on that, I think. Like I said before, I don't think we're going to have too many opportunities to counter a non-creature spell, although our opponent seems to be proving us wrong in this deck. So we could take a massive hit here. That is 13, 15 and 21. Like I said before, I'd rather not bounce the Bane of Progress, but we're just forced to do this here, I think. So let's bounce some creatures. We can block the Elephant token safely, I think, and just take a hit for 10 so they don't get the Bane of Progress back. Yeah, we'll just use the Snap now, I think, instead of the Mystic Confluence. Don't want to waste that, so bounce the Soul of the Harvest back. Then go through to blocks. We will block the 3/3 Elephant, hope that they can't pump it at all, and take a hit for 12, which is more than half of our life total. Unfortunately not wrapping up Soul of the Harvest in a board wipe like we wanted to previously. Okay, so let's go for the Memory Deluge now. Looking at the top X cards of our library, this is actually slightly worse in this deck, thanks to us not spending as much mana on it. Okay, Torrential Gearhulk, 2 cards in our hand. We definitely go for the 2 artifacts here. And then can we afford to flash this back? It would cost 5, 6, 7 mana. So obviously can't afford it here. Torrential Gearhulk we could afford. I think we're best holding on to that. Our opponent discards a couple of lands down to hand size, noteworthy the Yavimaya, so that we can't tap the Mizra's Workshop for anything apart from artifacts. Play out the Seat of the Synod. And then we're finally activating the Urza, I think. So managing to meld. This is the first game I played with this deck, and we get the Urza Planeswalker. So now it has to be the Vanquish the Horde, I think, which is going to cost us 3 mana and tap out all of our white mana, unfortunately. can still afford a remand. So let's go for destroying their Great Henge, I think. Exiling their Great Henge. And we'll plus on this as well. Deal with as much of their card draw as possible eventually. Alright, and there we see a Primal Surge. So I'm guessing they're going to do pretty well with that in a more permanent space deck. Let's go for the remand. That will cantrip us and send it back to their hand. Got us into a Basalt Monolith. Throwing out a Llanowar Elves, not too worried about that at this point. Okay, so Basalt Monolith part of an infinite mana combo. Not necessarily too worried about it, I don't think. Not that bothered about getting it out. We drew into a Force of Will for more control. I think we're best getting some creatures out here, I think. And then maybe go for the loot. So make a couple of Soldier Artifact tokens. And then the +1, draw 2, discard 1. And there we have an Otawara, and Unwind is a good thing to have as well, although it's a non-creature spell, so yeah, we'll get rid of that. Can fish it out with the Torrential Gearhulk if we're desperate. So let's go for the Basalt Monolith for 3 mana. I think I'll hold on to the Otawara so that we can bounce something if needs be. Otherwise, we're just going after the Memory Deluge, which will cost us the full 7 mana. So should be able to look at a decent number of cards with that. Unnatural Growth for our opponent. I think we might regret letting that in play, but as long as we can keep any of their decent creatures out, it should be safe enough. Animating the Nylea with that, which is exactly what things like the Otawara are for. Nylea being bumped up to a 14/14. It does not have Trample anymore, thanks to... yeah, it gives other creatures Trample, so that's bumped up to a 2/2. It swings in towards us. The Nylea bumped up to a 14/14, like I said, without the Trample, now that they've lost their enchantment from before. So I'm not even going to bother with the Otawara. We'll take the 2 from the Llanowar Elves. Noteworthy that they could have tapped out into this to give it Trample, but obviously decided against it. Had they have done that, then I would have gone for the Otawara at that point. Obviously wanting them to tap their mana into something other than just replaying the Nylea straight away. Okay, Prowling Serpapard. It can't be countered, so yeah, that's going to be a tricky one. Maybe the Torrential Gearhulk onto removal would be a good idea. They'll feel safe trying to get down their Ruric Thar into that, which is noteworthy. But we can also exile it straight up with the Urza. Following that up with an Elvish Piper, 5 cards left in hand. So we will now cast the Memory Deluge. Okay, and 2 cards into hand from here. So we've got Swords to Plowshares available to us. The Argivian Restoration is potentially relevant. I think it's just rocks in the bin, really. So probably Enlightened Tutor and Swords to Plowshares here, I think. And then we might as well have a look through our library with the Enlightened Tutor and actually try to bring this game to a close sometime this century. So from those, I think we take the Metallurgic Summonings, and then let's go for the Swords to Plowshares onto the Prowling Serpapard. It's noteworthy as well that Elvish Piper gets around counter magic, so we'll have to be wary of that one. Obviously know what we're drawing into, that is Metallurgic Summonings. So we'll tap down the Basalt Monolith for that, seeing as how we're not comboing off yet with it. Metallurgic Summonings is played, and we'll start making creatures from now on. Let's exile the Elvish Piper with the Urza, and then I think we can draw 2 and discard a card here. Let's make a couple of Soldier tokens just in case they get a hasty creature into play. Swing in with the lone Soldier token. Here we see the Primal Surge being cast once again, so we can just play the Force of Will here, I think. Or maybe do we just go Mystic Confluence and cantrip? Yeah, let's go for some card draw with the Mystic Confluence, I think. That way, if they've got an answer to this, we could draw into another blue spell to exile with the Force of Will. Triggers the Metallurgic Summoning, so we're going to get a 5/5 into play. Obviously allowing that to go down because they can't afford to pay for it, we draw into the Thran Dynamo. Growing Rites of Itlamok after that, with which they reveal to us an Etali Primal Storm. Do not have haste yet, thankfully. But it's worth noting that that is going to be in play soon. So once again, don't have the Trample on the Nylea. They do have it on the Llanowar Elves though, might double block here. Oh, actually we've got the 5/5 construct now, haven't we? So they don't swing in at all. Just deciding to hold back blockers instead. Okay, getting to a land in Razor Tide Bridge. That is an indestructible artifact. Might as well throw down the Thran Dynamo. Not doing anything else with Mishra's Workshop. And it's noteworthy, we do control 6 or more artifacts for the metallurgic summonings now. Let's draw 2 and discard, I think. Okay, Grim Monolith I think is what we discard there. Cyclonic Rift, once we've got some big creatures in play, will be decent, so let's just get rid of the Nylea so it's not a headache for us anymore. And then we can start swinging in with this construct, I think. Seeing the Atali Primal Storm, as we assumed we would, they've got 3 cards left in hand. And there we see a Terastodon, so I think that's the case for hard casting the Force of Will. Nets us another 5/5 Metallurgic Summonings. Alright, and they decide to scoop there. I mean, I think they certainly would have done once we bounced their Itali with the Otawara. We were just going to continue to make big 5/5s and maybe eventually get down the Gear Hulk and actually start swinging in their general direction. I think that was your typical Azorius grindy game, so apologies to my opponent for that. I don't think I'm going to be playing this deck again anytime soon because of that, but hopefully you all enjoyed it regardless. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.